Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 26 of Parenting Autism. You are being hosted today by Sandy and Chris Coulter. Hey,
hello,
babe.
Hello.
And if this is your first time joining us and you've somehow come across our podcast for the first time, we want to thank you for tuning in and taking some time to hang with us today. If you have heard us before and you are subscribed or coming back to hear more, we just want to give you a huge thank you. It means so much to us, and we really do feel this calling to just share our journey with our son Bryce with those in the world that can benefit from it. And so today we're going to be talking about the latest change of events, I should say, in our home, which we were not expecting. Since we last recorded 2 weeks ago, we had a big change with Bryce's schooling, and we received a notification from the school that they wanted to meet with us. And when we got that text or the message that came through the phone, it was just the teacher, the ESE coordinator, which would be the special needs coordinator for those who don't know the lingo, and the aide that has been assisting Bryce in the classroom.
Yeah, we just want to have an informal meeting with you.
Yeah, and Chris went immediately, oh, no.
I think you set it up for like a week later or something.
Well, I'm talking about like when we just even first got the note, it was kind of like, oh, I wonder what that's all about. And I kind of thought the same thing. I know.
It can't be good. I mean, they don't set these meetings, because they have time to tell us how good our kid's doing. I mean, they tell us that every day. But, the only reason to really have a meeting is if something has gone awry.
Well, I think, I try to be more of the eternal optimist. I try. It's not always there. But even when that came through, I was like, you and I were going to call a meeting, but now they're calling a meeting. And when I saw it was including all three of them, I just had this feeling it had to do with his performance. And let's back up a little bit.
You just said that we were going to call a meeting, so let's explain what that's about, because we over the summer had already decided that 30 days in or so that we would like to have a meeting with the ESE team or the IEP team just to see how his progress is and how he's doing, and if he's going to be able to make it. What we could do, because last year when we had his IEP meeting, which is his individual education plan, for those who don't know the lingo again, it was with a different teacher and the aide wasn't in it. So I feel like the only person who's really in his world right now, day to day, was just, the ESE coordinator. And then we had new players who didn't know him, new therapists, everything. And so we thought, instead of waiting all the way until April or May, which would have been the 1 year mark, we wanted to get in there sooner versus later. So it definitely was in our plan, but we had been asking. We got good reports from school.
Yeah, it was like, and I even
all smileys.
A smiley face every day but once. There was something about him not paying attention because he was looking distracted by the computers, and you told her to set a timer, and that should work.
I told her I would even build a partition so that he could not see the computer where he was sitting, if that's what it took. I will buy, or I will build a partition if that's what it takes for him to succeed in your classroom.
Yeah, and it only came up one day, and then that seemed to work. The only other thing that came up was in the classroom, that he was struggling with the morning routine, and we gave her a visual chart to put, and then she said that it was like the schedule of all the things that he does.
Is what we call it. Yep.
Okay. We call it the visual schedule. But anyway, so he had pictures to show him what to do, basically. And then she said that worked beautifully. So I really was unaware of any other concerns, because the other time I asked her in a direct question, she said he was doing wonderful. So when you hear wonderful and you see smiley faces every day, then you're just a little surprised, I would have to say. But then when I asked her, because, I knew you were wondering, and I was wondering too. So I said, is there something specific that we should be concerned about? And her response was, no, nothing specific. We just want us to all meet and see if we can get on the same page as to what's going to be best for Bryce. Something that's pretty much it. And I was like, okay. I know what's coming now. And they're thinking he's not going to make it in the regular classroom. And they're going to think what's best for him is putting him in the autism unit. And I really sensed it at that point. And
plus I saw the ESE coordinator in the pickup line.
I was going to say, and then the next day you ask her.
And I said, look, I can't wait until whenever Sandy set this appointment. I need to, what's this meeting? Oh, don't worry about it. It's just an informal meeting. And we just all want to get together and talk about, how Bryce is doing and if this is the right environment for him, like if he's, and this could be, this is talking about the future later on,
Big picture, right?
Yeah, big picture. So it's nothing to worry about. He's just having a little trouble in the classroom. He's distracted, and we just want to talk about that.
Right. But even when you came home and told me that, I still sensed in my spirit there was more to it. So
we knew it.
We started talking about, okay, what is plan B? What is plan C? And I had even prayed that night, and I was like, okay, Lord, I'm just going to pray you make this really crystal clear to us if he's not supposed to be in that classroom environment because it's not best for him to thrive, then where should it be? And the next day, bless his heart, it was probably one of his most difficult days he had at school. We get this note, and you send it to me that the teacher had sent saying that he had a hole in his sock, and he was obsessed with it and would take off his shoe and not focus on anything else. And you wrote back, yep, he gets obsessed with holes in his socks.
I'll bring him a new pair of socks.
So it really was a sign to me that
you can't.
That's where Bryce is different.
You can't forget about the yogurt. So I brought him new socks to school. No later than I get back home. 10 minutes later, I get another note. His yogurt exploded in his lunchbox.
And we have sent yogurt to school every single day of this year because that's like his core, part of his meal, right? That he can feed himself, and it's gluten-free, dairy-free. Right. And it exploded all over. He just had a bad day, and the yogurt has nothing to do with his behaviors. It just added to the fact that, okay, this is, and his teacher is so gracious about it. So I just kind of knew when I read that text about the hole in his sock and his distraction. And I could picture her and how difficult it is for her, as much as she fell in love with Bryce very early, and she did. She's got 20 some other kids in her classroom, and it's not fair to her.
It's not fair to the other kids.
It's not fair to the other kids. And really, it's not even fair to Bryce because she can't do that, and the aide can't be there the whole time. So I understood exactly where they were coming from. Did it make my heart sad? Yes.
So we reached out to friends in our world and other people, BCBAs, and all these. We got their opinions on they know Bryce and what have they done in the past and what worked, and I forgot where I was going with that. And
I don't know. Where were you going with that?
So
it didn't take us straight to Plan Z, I can tell you that, because I still wasn't thinking that.
Well, people had mentioned different other public schools in the area, but they all had mixed reviews. You'd have 3 people come on and say it was great, and then another one person say, "Don't, it was horrible,"
Right.
And so we're like, well, public school, they're going to want to put them in an ASD unit where there's other kids of varying abilities and behaviors, and including, some kids that are violent, and it's not the kids' fault that they're that way. It's just the way the unit is. And how can Bryce learn in that environment where it would be similar, maybe less kids, but he would still need one-on-one. And that went for the private school too. We looked into some private schools, but really at the end of the day, any type of, quote, school he was going to go to would not be able to give him the one-on-one attention that he needed to learn and excel in it and succeed.
Well, I think that is how we came to that conclusion. And I even talked to my mom because I happen to have the one day of the year that I spend with my mom where we go away. And I had gotten that news the night before. So I was a little sad. You were feeling sad. And I said, well, I'll talk to my mom tomorrow about it. And I was actually surprised that she was like, yeah, that, he can't stay in there because it's not fair to the teacher and it's not fair, to the students. And it kind of surprised me because I thought she would be like, well, Bryce will, surprise them all, which, because she always expected him to like just go in there and just blow it away. You know what I mean? And I get that too. And I love that she has that optimism that I try to mirror. But she really got it. Like she was right there with me like, maybe it is better for him to not be in that class. But then we talked about the autism unit and we knew that's not where we wanted him to be. And again, it's not because of the other children per se. It's almost like the opposite. If we put him into a contained unit, let's just say, and we did confirm this when we met with them on Monday morning of this past week, we just said how what's the ratio, how many students are in there, and then how many, they have one teacher, they have one aide, and they have one behavior therapist for, I think like 10 to 12 students it was. Mm-hmm. So I'm just imagining that if there's any other students that their behaviors are going to be more distracting than Bryce's behaviors, then he's going to get lost in that classroom. So for the opposite reason, that he would require less attention.
And I have to mention that while all this was going on, we were juggling a few other things. So during the summer, we had discussed, and even prior to the summer, we discussed putting Bryce into a private school where he could get more attention, maybe with a smaller class size. Mm-hmm. And so we had applied here in Florida for the Gardner Scholarship, which is a special needs scholarship just here in Florida for homeschoolers and kiddos that were going to go into private school. It helps pay for the private school tuition. So the week prior to us getting this meeting notice, I got an email from Gardner saying that he had been accepted into the scholarship, but to call them and let them know they were going to be doing a cross-check to make sure that he wasn't in public school, because if you're enrolled in public school during the cross-check period, they automatically decline the scholarship. So we had that going on. And also when we got back from our trip to Canada, I started my interview process with the church, which happened to take, it was a couple of months that this process took. I had several interviews and tests that I took. And so we had that going on because I knew with Bryce being back in school full time this year from like 8:30 to 2:30, I'd have a chance to get back into the workforce again, which I was looking forward to. So that all culminated to this day of the meeting. So
right. So I had all of that building up. And then, and I had gone to, over the weekend, of course, we were, again, talking about this, praying about it. And I had gone to a meeting with a group of autism parents and grandparents that I had not met with before. I had been invited. And so when I went, I was listening to them talk, because at this point my head was still I felt like it was spinning all over again. And like back in the early days when he was diagnosed. And, I'm just listening to them and their experiences that they were having at school with their children and their grandchildren and the behaviors and the problems with the teachers and all of that. And I was like, oh my goodness, I just can't imagine going into that direction right now. So I think it was last Sunday, a week ago, that we talked about it and said, yeah, we definitely feel that it's going to be plan Z. Because I had even told you no homeschooling. You're like, I didn't even mention homeschool. And I'm
didn't.
I know, but I'm just saying, if that's going through your mind, that should be the last thing. That's plan Z. And let's think about plan B. Let's think about plan C.
And your biggest worry with homeschooling was?
My biggest worry with homeschooling is that Bryce very much has compartmentalized what he does and where he does things. Like, in other words, last year when he would have songs or things that he did at All Villages, if I tried to get him to do it here, he would say, no, only not at the Coulter Hotel, only at All Villages, and anything like that. He will only do things on certain days. He will only do them in certain places. If that's part of his routine, then, don't go mess with it. And I was very much concerned that if this home became his school, it would confuse him and he may not be willing to learn. Mm-hmm. That was probably my primary reason why I was hesitant about it. It had nothing to do with you or your capability, because we teach him all the time. I think probably some layer along that as well is that I know how important it has been for you to feel like you're, quote unquote, contributing again to the bottom line and getting a job and getting back into the workforce. That has been a big topic of discussion in our home over the past, 3 years since all this has happened. We had a prior episode where we were very open about your depression, and a lot of that even contributed to the fact that you had lost your identity of, working and being that financial provider, because you were in the position of, being Bryce's Uber, taking him to all the therapies and getting, handling all the day-to-day stuff. Yeah. And he was your job, but it wasn't fulfilling to you as your job.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I guess the mental thing of not having a paycheck, to a man, it doesn't feel like a job.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though, we talked about all of that. So
we did.
Those were my concerns. Like, you were so close to getting back into the workforce. We even redid our budget, and we were making all these plans.
And just to back up a little bit, is all of your concerns that you had with homeschooling, it just came to my mind to call our very good friend who's opening up a school here locally that we'll talk about more later. It's a special needs school, and she has a son. I feel like we're just following in her footsteps because her son is much older than Bryce, but I feel like we're taking the same track that she did as she raised her son. She wasn't able to have her son in public school. It's a big moment. It's a life-changing thing when you take your child out of school because they're not excelling. That is a big monumental decision. And we didn't have a choice. And when we got her on the phone talking to Sandy, and Sandy expressed her concerns, she was able to just tell you that everything was going to be okay, and that she thought the same way that you did when she withdrew and homeschooled him, and it just all worked out. And she nailed every point that we had about homeschooling, and I think after that phone call we really felt comfortable with the idea.
Yes, I agree. It was that day that we were like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So here's the plan. We were able to reschedule the meeting to go in Monday morning before work, so that way I wouldn't have to miss the meetings and all of that day at work. Mm-hmm. And you didn't have to wait until later in the week. Yes. And plus, we had received another email from the Gardner Scholarship on Friday saying that we would have to have proof that he was no longer in public school by Friday the 27th.
Yeah, so I called the Gardner people, Step Up for Students, and the lady on the phone was like, I explained our situation, that, we may have to homeschool him. We were probably going to have to homeschool him, but he was in public school right now, but we would be withdrawing him. And I don't think she was following the policy of the Step Up for Students, but she told me that since I had mentioned that he was in public school, that she had to cancel his scholarship right away, and that there was no other options for us to get the scholarship. And I was like, okay, so, I was being honest with you, and I told you my whole story, and now I'm being penalized because I told you that he's in public school. And
but coming out.
But coming out of public school, and she's like, there's nothing, you told me, and I have to record that he is in public school. And I was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do?
Yeah, well, like I said, so we got that email saying that we had to show the proof. So I was like, well, then we're going to show them proof. That's what we'll do, and obviously we'll pray about it. So Monday morning, it was kind of neat in the way that like God was lining everything up for us, because I had prayed for it to be crystal clear. The hole in his sock, honestly, was my affirmation that poor kid, he's just going to be distracted with something else the next time that will keep him off his game. And then for that, giving us like a deadline to work within, because, it's like, when do we do this? And it's like, well, I guess we have to do it like immediately so that we can get everything processed and proof to Gardner that he is withdrawn. So we knew going in on Monday, we were going to listen with an open mind. But if they were going to recommend what we thought they were going to recommend, then we had the answer for them, which would be, okay, we're going to homeschool him. And that's how it went down. But I have to say that whole meeting, again, I want to say, I know we talk about God a lot on this podcast, but that's just because that's where my faith is and that's how I see it. That's my world. And I really saw God's hand in this again, because I don't believe that things just luckily happen all the time. So I think there's divine intervention. And this meeting was called for 3 to be in there, which was going to be the ESE coordinator that we know very, very well from last year as well. His teacher, who has been nothing but wonderful with him and with us this whole year. And his aide, who has been with him, but we have had no relationship with other than like in passing saying hi once, I think, like on the first day. And I just felt like, I don't know. I felt like she might have been one that was seeing the need more so than the others, because their hearts were invested in it, where she could see things more analytically. I think that's the best way to say that. So I'm sure she's like, listen, this isn't going to work, long term. And I'm sure she was giving the nudge, as she should in her role, because that's what should be done. But because we had originally had the meeting for later in the week, she didn't get the notification that it got changed to Monday morning. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I'm saying that was divine intervention is because we could have such a heartfelt, open conversation with these other 2 ladies who we know want nothing more than the best for Bryce. I mean, she even opened it up saying, I just want you to know. And then she's already crying, and we didn't even get to like anything. Like, I love Bryce like my son. Yeah. I do. I love him like my son, and then I'm tearing up, and they just truly love him and they want what's best for him. And that's why she encouraged us last year. She goes, I was on board. Let's shoot for the moon. Let's give him a chance. We were hoping that over the summer he would mature enough that he could do this. But he's just not ready, and it's okay. And he sat on my lap that entire meeting. He just sat there and listened. He didn't even fidget. I think he was listening to everything we were saying, and he was hearing and seeing how much they love him. Some of it, yeah. I think he understood. He it was probably a good thing he was just sitting there with all that. And then they went and got the principal, because they're like, she's going to be so sad. And then she came in, and she had tears in her eyes, and then they're like, you will always be a part of our school family, and you can come to any function we have. I mean, we felt so loved. And I don't know that you could ask for a better way to part ways from a school than what we were given.
I think when they knew that we came in with a plan, and when they heard our plan, you could kind of see the relief come over their faces, and just if there was any tension in the room, there was none.
I think the only tension was that she didn't really want to have to tell us what her plan was.
Right.
Because we were letting her speak, and we let her speak so we could hear her out. But then she just said,
She was afraid we'd be upset with her plan.
Exactly. And we would have been if that was the only plan that we had, because her hands were tied. Her only alternative was to recommend
a different school,
either VE or an autism unit, but it couldn't be at their school because they don't have the space there. And so knowing that Bryce would be leaving and starting from ground zero
at another school,
different principal, different
way
ESE coordinator.
Away from home.
I mean, you know, if there was an emergency, different teacher, everything. Well, that wasn't going to work. So then when she said that, Chris says, you said, I have good news for you. And they paused and looked, and you're like, Sandy and I have been talking about this because we thought this might be your direction, and we're going to homeschool him. And that's where the relief, they were like, oh, wonderful. Because they know that right now, that's what's best for him.
Yeah.
And so, again, as sad as they were that we were withdrawing him, and then his teacher started crying. She goes, is this happening today? I wasn't ready for today. And we're like, it is happening today because we have to get the scholarship back reinstated. And they're like, just let us know if there's anything we can do. And we're like, yes, you can. You can get this processed as quick as possible. Let us know exactly what we need to do so that we can get this back. And they did.
I went back onto the Gardner website, and it showed the status, parent declined. And I'm like, I did not decline this. So I sent an email to the chief operating officer and this other lady that I had been in touch with and said, look, here's the situation. Here's what went down. You know, is there any way you guys can still help us? Because Bryce isn't going to a private school, the scholarship can still help us with the materials and the curriculum and anything that we need to have a successful homeschool program.
Plus, once he gets it, doesn't he have it until he goes back into a public school? Like he'll have that
each year
always.
That it renews, he's at the first of receiving the funds.
Yeah.
So
it's important.
So we've been back and forth with them for the past week or so, getting all the documents to them. And the bottom line is they put us back into the pending status, which was great news, a blessing.
Yes.
And then we got an email from one of the ladies, and she said that, you know, the cross-check is going to happen in a couple of weeks, and it shouldn't be a problem with the documentation that they received. So, yay, celebration.
Yeah. Again, it was like affirmation after affirmation after affirmation that we were doing the right thing.
Yeah, so
this whole week.
We brought Bryce home. I'm like, oh, boy, where do we start?
I know. I was like,
I really wasn't
we
prepared.
Did this. But, because we had no time to even prepare a curriculum or
so
anything.
we had some supplies that the school had given us that he was working on, and some stuff that our friends had given us. So I just went to work with the sight words that he was working on, and I found the actual kind of roadmap for his school online for his curriculum. So I decided to, you know, just follow that until I got a planner together and a curriculum together. And after the first day of school, you know, it was very apparent to us that was the best decision we ever made.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much I want to elaborate on what you just said, but I will start with the most important one, which is Bryce's level of joy this week has been higher than I can remember seeing it. And his anxiety level has been lower than I can remember seeing it in a really, really, really long time. And as much as he loves school, and I would have told you, he loves school. He loves going to school because he does. He never gave us any grief about going. You know, he always got up and went, and he liked it. And he would talk about, especially resources being his favorite, but he would talk about that. But there was never any evidence that he was not happy about something other than, you know, I've seen him, like, when I say the anxiety is like he's always got his fingers in his mouth about something, right? Since we've brought him home, I have not even seen that hardly at all. And he's just so happy, and he's just like telling. And when I came home Monday evening after school, and you had done daddy school that, because I wasn't even sure what we were going to call it. I'm like, oh, that's another thing, because he's all about names. Do we call it the Coulter Hotel School? What do we call it? And even before that, on Sunday, when we knew we were going to make this decision, I'm like, well, we can't set up his bedroom as his schoolroom if that's where he's going to sleep, because I don't like an office in my bedroom, and where you sleep is where you sleep. And to your point, you're like, listen, he's not sleeping in the bed anyway, so we're not going to waste a perfectly good room.
Right. I mean, there's nothing going on in that room anyway.
Except toys and his clothes hanging in there.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, on that note, we have been preparing him that when he turns 6 years old, we've been telling him this since January. When you turn 6 years old on October 5th, you're going to sleep in your Thomas bed. And if you ask him this minute, where are you going to sleep when you turn 6 years old? He's going to tell you, in his Thomas bed with Ollie, his owl. So we've been prepping this. So we did some measurements. We did some moving. We moved our bed over. We moved Thomas' bed into our bedroom, because step one will be to move him out of our bed and into his bed on October 5th. That's the plan. And I think he'll honestly transition better that way than being the way our floor plan is in our home. His bedroom is on the entire other opposite side of the house. And he's an only child, and he really doesn't like the dark. So I could understand why that would be hard for him. But by moving his bed out, that set up his room, and we have an extra laptop. So Chris set up the laptop, so he had his own computer, and we already had his desk and his chairs and all of that. So it really was like a little school classroom for him when you came home on Monday. Mm-hmm. So we can get into like what you've done for the routine, but I think I just really want to go ahead and go to what happened Monday evening, which was ultra special. Yeah. So when I got home Monday, he, was telling me about Daddy's school and some of the things that they did. And then it was several hours later that he was leaving the room, and he was so excited, and he says, Daddy's school is awesome. Oh, here he comes. Hold on a second. You need a water bottle? Water bottle game. Show Daddy.
Okay.
To throw it right there all the way to finish line.
Oh, you want to throw the water bottle to the finish line?
Oh.
Hi.
I'll go fix it today.
Okay. Oh, I can't fix this right now, buddy.
But can he fix it later?
When Mommy and Daddy are done, we'll
We're talking to the people.
Say hi.
You want to say hi to the people?
Hi, people.
You going to tell them what we're doing today? Are you going to go play soccer?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, good.
All right.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
You want to go play that game until we're done?
When Mommy and Daddy are done, I'll get you that.
Okay, so after that brief Bryce interruption, I was going to finish the story. So Monday evening, it just kind of came out of randomly nowhere. And all of a sudden, Bryce was like, Daddy's school is so great. It's excellent. I love you, Daddy. I love you, Daddy. Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. And we were in the living room, and I looked at you, and I immediately teared up. And you were tearing up. You looked at me. It was so sweet. And you said, I love you too, buddy. You just made my life. And I have to tell you, my heart was bursting, because he's never told you before independently at all, I love you, Daddy. And you got your first time.
Yeah.
And you got it on Daddy's school day, your first day. And I believe he was really saying that because he's so relieved and so happy that he's going to be able to be taught here at home. Right now, this is the season for him to be taught at home. Will this be until 12th grade? God knows, we don't. Right. But right now, this is where he's supposed to be.
That was just a super special moment for me, and I had no idea how much of an impact I was making on him.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for every parent listening out there who has a kiddo on the spectrum, and maybe who doesn't have a kiddo on the spectrum that's listening. You don't always know the full extent of your impact on your kids. The attention that they need, the attention that you give them has so much impact. The love and the care.
Yeah.
And
that is for any child.
For any child.
Even when you're an adult, you crave that from your parent.
Mm-hmm.
You do.
You do. And when he said that to me, I was like, God, that's mission accomplished right there. I am all in, as we say at church.
That's it. And you had told me earlier in the day when you had made this decision, you said, I found my purpose.
Yeah.
And I heard that, and I'm like, you know what? You're not going to get this job at the church because you hadn't heard back yet. I'm
I hadn't heard
like,
back
this
yet.
is your purpose. And we knew you were supposed to hear any day because it had already been 1 week since you had the last interview that was going to be the final decision. I
felt like, and I have to say this, that all of the pressure that I had put on myself for getting a job, and not having a job for these past couple of years, and it just came off of me when we finished that first day of daddy school. You know, I knew God told me, this is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're meant to do. Don't let those chains hold you down. You know, you have your purpose now. You're supposed to be dad to your son, and you're supposed to teach your son. And
that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Seriously, that is so, so beautiful. And when you got the call, you said, I don't know what I'm going to do if they call and say I have the job.
Yeah.
I said, well, I think God's going to take that off the plate for you, and they're going to call you and tell you they went another way.
Yeah, so it's funny because
and they did.
I happen to be our resource for Tuesday, which is the day after our meeting and the first day of daddy school. So our resource on Tuesday was going to the church in the afternoon and picking up trash for God in the golf cart. So that's one of our extracurricular activities that we do. And I pulled into the church parking lot, and the pastor of the church called me. And I've been sitting there in the parking lot of the church talking to him.
I did not even know that's where you got the call. That's hilarious.
And I was out in the parking lot getting ready to serve. And he's, telling me as lovingly and as graciously as
trying to let you down, right?
Yeah. Telling me that they had gone in a different direction for the position because a different person had shown more qualifications, more experience for this particular position. There was an event at our church over the summer that this particular person handled, and they were so impressed with the way they handled it, they decided to hire that person for the job. And I was on the receiving end of that, and I was able to share what God had done with the pastor, and it was just neat. I was like, you know what? It's not a problem at all. I said, God worked over this past week and this weekend and this yesterday, and told me clearly that I'm supposed to be homeschooling Bryce, and that there was no way that I could divide my time between homeschooling Bryce and give the church my full undivided attention for what they needed me for. So it was a blessing and to see God work in all the ways that he did leading up to that point. And then for me to be able to share that with the pastor, it was really neat. It was full circle.
It is full circle. It's so funny because I didn't realize you were in the parking lot when you got the call, but that's very funny. And I do believe that you needed to be to have the job application in process. So at least there were wheels in motion and something was going on. Otherwise, I think you would have been very frustrated that you didn't even have
the chance.
Anything going on anywhere.
That's true.
You know what I mean? And you'd have been like, well, what else am I supposed to do? And what else am I supposed to do? And you would have been going out and trying to find something else. And God kept you hooked onto that line right there, because he knew he was going to take you off that after that day. Otherwise, I could see you rushing into something else that you weren't supposed to go into. And then you'd have felt horrible if you had to quit, because that's you know? So, it's been really, really neat just to see how all of that has come together. And even Tuesday afternoon when I came home from work, and Bryce was telling me about Daddy's School again. He was
He's
so
so
excited. And, he keeps talking about it all night, all night. Like, this is the most he ever talks about school.
Yeah,
he asked for it in the morning. And then he went over to you and he just, like, wrapped his arms around your legs. And he's like, thank you, Daddy. Thank you. So it's like he's told you, I love you. He's thanking you.
Yeah.
He is so grateful to be here.
Yeah.
So, so you're talking about curriculums and stuff. So we can talk about that. Now listen, people, we do not have the curriculum together, but what we did was Chris just put together something this week because I said we have to keep him in some form of structure.
Yeah, absolutely.
He needs to have some type of routine going on,
Plus, I needed to get into the routine.
Yeah. So, let's make sure we get him up in the morning. He still gets his breakfast. He still gets his Epsom salt bath because that's been an important part of helping him heal. And so tell them about your little yoga routine in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Because he talks about it every day. He looks forward to this in the morning.
So we have these 2 mats in our kitchen. One's in front of the sink, one's in front of the oven, and it kind of cushions your feet so that your feet don't hurt when you're cooking.
Yeah.
So, and my feet are another story, but anyway. So we take our mats into the family room, and so first we say a prayer and we ask God for a good day at Daddy's homeschool, and that Bryce is able to learn and absorb everything that's being taught to him. So we do our prayer, and so we sit next to each other on our mats with crisscross applesauce, and we pray. And then he found this little sound that Alexa does. It's called rocket launch sound effects. So I brought Alexa into the family room and plugged her in, and so I wanted to start out our day with stretching, so that we get into the mood and everything for school. So, we hold our hands in front of us and we tell Alexa to do the rocket launch sound. And when she does that, Bryce loves rockets. And when it blasts off, we put our hands up in the air all the way to the ceiling, to outer space. And then we come back down with a parachute. So we kind of do some stretching things. And one of them we call the doggy because we're like on all fours and we're stretching. And
he loves that.
The doggy pose. And
the rocket launch.
The rocket launch, yeah. So we do a couple of those poses. It's really cute, and that just gets us into the frame of mind, and it gets us started on our day. And he just loves that.
I think that's adorable.
Yeah,
and it's all working to your child's personality and what they love. But
yeah,
and that was another thing we said about homeschooling is who knows him best. We do, and we know what he loves and what he'll take interest in, and so. I have to say, like, for the curriculum wise, we're still looking at what we're going to do and trying to just figure out what's going to be best. However, we've had some resources given to us. So, like, we've got all the lessons from the school. We have a link to that so we can keep on pace with his kindergarten class. And his teacher, she's so wonderful. And she said, I'll just keep sending you all the homework like I'm sending all the other parents. That way you know which sight words we're working on. You know what we're doing with them. You'll know what we're doing for math.
Yeah.
So we're in the loop still. And then I said, well, I was trying to figure out my role in this to help you because it is a lot
right.
to
you weren't
take
sure,
on.
Do I want to teach part of it? Do I, want to change my work schedule? And so we really hadn't decided.
No.
And I was like, well, I said, you can help me figure out this curriculum because when I click on one thing, it gives me half a dozen lesson plans. And then when I click on one of those lessons plans, another half a dozen come up. So I hadn't really had a lot of time to look into it and figure it all out. And you were able to jump in and create this week for us a lesson plan. So, and I know from what I've read, and Bryce does this as well, is he learns very well from visual. So like YouTube videos or video curriculum, and Sandy put together everything that we would need to do like table work. So sight words, mathematics, counting,
And a
science project. So all that is great, and what I'm going to do is supplement, or not supplement, in addition to, I'm going to get some YouTube videos or some other curriculum videos to put with all of that to reinforce what she's put together for us. And I think it's a great plan, and we'll be able to monitor his progress. You know, we're going to pick up a planner today so I can write down each day what's been accomplished. And so we're just getting it all together now. And
we're excited. I mean, we are excited. And I know my role, so what I did, I could even like copy and paste the lesson plan, and it was talking about, and the teacher does this and the students do that. And I went ahead and personalized it for Chris. So that way it says, you know, you will do this and Bryce will do this. And I also modified it. Like the story was about fish and giving them goldfish, which he's not eating goldfish anyway. And it has to do with counting to 5. So I went ahead and improvised on that because I knew I had 5 little astronauts that he could take instead of 5 goldfish, and we could use space. And we went to the library and we got some books. And, you know, it's kind of fun for me because I thought I would always be a teacher. And I did. I used to teach my brothers when they were little. I'd take them into my bedroom and I wouldn't let them out until they know their alphabet. I mean, I was like hardcore teacher. But, you know, I always wanted to be a teacher because I loved school. And I had such great teachers. And I thought, oh, I want to do that. And I really had that as my plan to do until my junior year of high school. And I had some bad experiences and things just changed. But God had different plans for me and it worked out fine. But I really thought that's what I was going to be, was a school teacher. So now I'm like, oh, I started getting to these lessons plans. I'm like, this is kind of fun, you know? And then Chris gets to, but then I thought, oh, I don't want to steal his thunder either. I mean, this is his purpose. This is his calling. So, you know, I want to make sure this is what he's wanting to do and what he's comfortable with. So we had that chat this morning to make sure, you know, I'm here to help you. This is your job. Yeah. This is what your calling is. This is what you're doing. But you let me know how you want me to help you, and I'm here to assist you. I want to be your assistant because I'm working with you, but I'm really kind of working for you to guide me, because I want you to have ownership of this. Yep. Because I think that's important. It's important all the way around that one person takes that ownership, but then we work together. So absolutely. I think we're getting that together, which is exciting. And so I got you all planned out for this week. And, you know, we're excited to be able to going to be able to share stuff on the podcast that's material we didn't know we would have. Let's just say that with the homeschooling. And we will have more resources, and we may even have videos that will help other parents. So we'll see what's coming on the horizon for parenting autism, but I really do think this could lead to more things. Yeah,
and I don't know if we mentioned it for our new listeners, but Bryce is just entering kindergarten. So he's 5, getting ready to turn 6. So that's where we're at. That's where we're starting homeschooling. And enjoy the ride with us.
Here we go. So that's it. We're getting ready to celebrate Bryce's 6th birthday next weekend. We're going to take him to finally use the Legoland passes that we've had for almost a year and take him to the Kennedy Space Center. So we won't be recording next week, but we'll be back the weekend after that, and we'll update you on his birthday and other things that are going on in the Coulter Hotel and Daddy School.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, everybody, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
See ya.